Okay, my good friend Israel, you have made out a very important point to me, and that is that indeed it is what you're trying to point out is that Israel or Jews were just a vehicle of God, that God's message is primarily to the whole world. And never was there any time when God was saying, I'm not addressing to Gentiles. Never a moment when God said, I'm only addressing to Jews. Okay. And Moses was just a vehicle. And the whole process was simply to tell the message, everyone is a chosen people, whatever race you may belong to, not just the Jews. Okay, I got you. Now, I want to say something now. And that is, there are two groups of people. One is called the outsider group, and the other one is the insider group. And you could belong to the insider. Okay, everyone can belong to the insider. But I want to tell you that there are two groups. One is the outsider and one is the insider. Okay, the outsider group is a group that God said on the sixth day, He said, let us make man in our image. That was the outsider group. But that was not the complete creation. God did not complete the creation of man on that day. God completed the creation only in Genesis chapter 2, where upon the Sabbath, that means on the seventh day, God said, and the Lord God made man from the soil of the ground and blew into him the breath of life, and man is the living soul. That completes. So in other words, there are two men. One is the exterior man, and another man is the interior. So an interior man is a person who understood the breath of God. In Jewish idea, neshama they call it, who understood the breath of God. Such a person is the living soul. Whereas, if the man, for most people in this world, they live in the exterior man. They are just in the image of God, but they are not the breath of God. So that's the reason why God had two kinds of people, but they were for all people of the world. Yeah. In the case of the story of the Jews, you will notice that God spoke to them directly at Mount Sinai. In others, God breathed into them the breath of life. So in other words, they became like living souls. But even then, not every Jew was able to listen very carefully to the voice of God at Mount Sinai. A lot of them told Moses, sorry, I cannot hear God's voice directly. You hear God's voice, and I hear you. So in other words, what's happening is that the direct connection that we have with God seems only for a few people. Moses is one of those few people who can connect with God at the level of voice. Whereas, what I mean by voice, at the level of the breath. But for most people, they connect with God at the level of the eyes, the sight. In other words, they know God as an idea. They understand the whole world as an idea. But there are a few people in this world who understood the universe and everything as within themselves. From themselves come forth the understanding of God, not from out there, but from themselves. So that's the whole meaning why God spoke to the Jews and then to the Gentiles. What the Bible is saying is that God speaks to the inner soul first, then the inner soul speaks to the man. So if you don't hear the inner soul, you're not getting nearer to God. If you just simply hear the word, that means you are just only hearing God as an image. But if you can go deeper into the breadth of the soul, then you have direct contact with God, a closer contact. Not only that, you are alive. And man became a living soul. Whereas in Genesis chapter 1, it is written, and God made man in the image of God. When you're made in the image of God, you are not really alive because you are like a mirror. You are like a mirror of God. So when God moves, you move, but you're not really alive because you're just a mirror. But when you are in touch with the breath of God, then you become alive. That's why it says you're the living soul. So all the time in my conversation with you, I was urging you actually to reach within yourself. Meditate, observe your own thoughts, observe what you're thinking, express yourself, that kind of thing. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because I want you to gain the practice, to gain the awareness, that soul knowing, that communication with your own self is the route to God. The route to God is not reading, is not having lots of Bible study. The route to God is knowing the soul. So notice very carefully. You have a mind, you have a soul, and you have God. So in terms of the Bible allegorical story, the mind is a Gentile, the soul is a Jew, and God is the Creator. So in other words, when I said that Jews are kind of chosen people, what I meant is that the Jews is a soul, whereas the Gentile is kind of a mind. But this is only allegorical. For every human being in this world, there are these three parts. There is a Gentile, there is a Jew, and there is a God. So the Gentile learns from the Jew, and the Jew learns from God. But actually, every man is a Jew, because when that man has connection with the soul, he is the chosen one. He has connection with the Creator. And when he has connection with the soul, he's a living son. He's a living person. And that is salvation.